We start with the Arizona Republic's Caitlin McGlade. She's the lead reporter on a series of stories that have exposed senior living centers putting residents in danger, sometimes with deadly consequences, and state agencies responding with a slap on the wrist. Welcome to Square Off.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for your outstanding reporting. Start at the beginning. What got you going on these stories?
In 2022, we found out about a woman who was killed by a woman down the hall at Bethesda Gardens in North Phoenix, both people with dementia. And we started investigating how often that happens. We found out the state doesn't track it, and we started collecting hundreds of police reports from 40 different jurisdictions and logging everything we found. And
go deeper on the kind of reporting you did, because this was extensive and also the kind of reporting the average person couldn't do.
Right. We had to file records requests for calls for service first to police departments all across the state for 300 some different addresses for assisted living and nursing homes. Once we got those, then we identified incident reports that had to do with assaults, fights, homicides, things of that nature. Then we built a database out of it.
And this isn't the kind of thing the average person, because folks are going to want to know, how can I find out about the place my mom or dad or grandparent is at? This isn't the kind of thing they could do. That's one of the themes of your stories.
Correct. There is very little information tracked in assisted living centers in Arizona. They do not have to report to the licensing agency, ADHS, when residents are hurt, unless there is a severe death or a few other things. So what we ended up doing was going and tracking it because it wasn't being tracked.
And now we have the story. Let's go to your latest story. During the summer, you reported on one assisted living facility, Heritage Village in Mesa, where a woman with dementia killed her roommate. It was a harrowing story to read, just horrifying. Your recent follow-up story showed, in your words, the facility continued to make mistakes after that death, racking up more citations than any other facility in Arizona, 150 citations in 3 years. Why is Heritage Village still in business?
The Arizona Department of Health Services continued issuing citation after citation for a variety of things, medication errors. One included a person who got double dosed on an opioid. Another person got Narcan for allergies.
Narcan for allergies. I read that. Stunning.
Yeah.
So they have all these citations and yet they still remain open.
Right. They did get fined about $18,500 over 3 years, but that equates to fewer than 5 months of rent for a single memory care resident.
And so that's something have they just made a calculation, we can afford these fines and keep doing business? Is that what's going on?
So Chris Mays, the Attorney General, has actually argued that these state fines are basically that some companies just work them into the cost of doing business.
It's the cost of doing business. And I do want to say, you know, having had relatives in these facilities, it's a really tough job. All the workers in there, it's a really tough, demanding job. So I want to say that, not to excuse, but this is a tough job. What has Heritage Village said to you?
The director of the private real estate firm that operates the company told me that they actually fired the management company last fall that was sort of responsible for a lot of these problems. Now, this firm they acquired the company in 2017. So I asked, well, why didn't you act sooner? And I didn't really get an answer. So they fired the company. Evidently, they've made some improvements. They've put in some physical therapy offices, medical offices. They've improved staff training and things of that nature.
Are there still citations, though?
There were only 8 in 2023. However, it's too soon to tell, like, with a trend. There would need to be more years of data in order to determine if we're seeing real results here.
And did I hear you right? You said this is a real estate company?
Correct.
That owns Heritage Village. Explain that, because that's not unique.
No, nursing homes and assisted living facilities can be owned by a variety of types of private companies. This one is a private real estate firm. They acquired it in 2017, and essentially they have properties around the Southwest. Their video on their website mostly talks about the the revenue streams that seniors bring into the market. They mentioned that they come with the life insurance policies from their spouses and things of that nature.
Guaranteed revenue stream, which is what smart investors are looking for, but maybe not what you think of when you're talking about places that care for your loved ones. Let's move on to what's being done about this. Here's what Governor Katie Hobbs said after your most recent story. The stories from Heritage Village and others are horrific and unacceptable. I am directing the Department of Health Services and Adult Protective Services to immediately launch an investigation. So the governor is putting the agencies responsible, who are responsible for the unacceptable response, into figuring out why it's an unacceptable response. Something doesn't seem quite right there.
Correct. I did ask her office if they were planning on doing any sort of external investigation, and as of right now, there is nothing planned of that nature.
She also says she's planning a package of bills in the upcoming legislative session, to deal with this. And this isn't a new problem. This has plagued Arizona for decades. You brought it to light in a really stark way. So again, if I have a parent or loved one in a senior living facility, how can I find out if they are safe?
That's a tough one. So with some of the proposals that Katie Hobbs put out, that things might change. She does want to have a transparent quality rating system put in place for nursing homes and assisted living facilities. That's something that has been vastly lacking here. If that happens, then it will be a lot easier for people to be able to shop and discern what's going on in these facilities. But right now, as it stands, the Arizona Department of Health Services does post every citation that they give to facilities for the last 3 years online. But they're hard to navigate, they're a little hard to understand, and that's a real problem with what people are going through.
One of the themes, many themes in the stories, is that families are being kept in the dark. I think it's a direct quote from one child of a parent in a facility. No one will listen to them. So let's close with a story about that. In the course of your reporting, you were the one who had to break the news to one family of how their parent died. Why didn't they know?
No one told them. The situation was where a woman who had killed her roommate at Heritage Village because her medication was skipped and she needed it to control agitation. She ended up moving to another facility, Brookdale, North Mesa, and they put her with a roommate. With dementia residents, anytime you move into a new environment, that's really scary for them. And sometimes they respond by lashing out. In this instance, the family of the new roommate they had problems right away. They asked for a new roommate. There was some pushing involved, stealing of wheelchairs, things of that nature. And the facility, Brookdale, North Mesa, told Jenny's family that the woman was harmless. Harmless.
Harmless.
They told her that.
And how did you prepare yourself to break it to them of what really happened?
Well, I kind of prepared for a number of scenarios. For one, I was like, maybe they won't want to know the full story, right? Maybe they just wanted to put it past them. And so I prepared for that. I also prepared for them becoming very upset and wanted to do something about it. And essentially what I did was I just called up one of the daughters on the phone, and she started telling me everything about the case. She's like, "How did you find me? This is really weird. I actually read your series in May and thought about my mom." And I ultimately was like, "Okay, well, are you sitting down? You weren't told the whole story about what happened." And she was like, "Come over to my house and tell my whole family." And I did. And we spent like an entire afternoon together, and all the granddaughters, all the daughters of this woman who had passed away in that facility. And they were grateful. They said, Joey, the woman's daughter, told me that she felt free now, that she had all the information, and that meant a lot to her.
Well, good for you. And thank you so much for your outstanding reporting and taking on pretty tough job like that.
Thanks.
Caitlin McGlade, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.